evening to you wherever you are in the world. Thank you all for joining us for our celebration of World Food Safety Day. Safer food, better health. Today's event is proudly brought to you by the National Environmental Health Association and Environmental Health Australia. We've teamed up to explore how food is kept safe in communities across the globe. On the other side of the world, Environmental Health Australia hosted their panel discussion yesterday on their June 7th, and today we are pleased to keep the celebration going in our time zone. My name is Laura Wilde, and I am the Senior Program Analyst in Food Safety at the National Environmental Health Association, or NEHA. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to our food safety heroes today about what they do and why it's so important to the health and safety of our communities. NEHA is a professional society with more than 6,000 governmental, private, academic, and uniformed service sector environmental health professionals in the United States, its territories, and internationally. NEHA is the profession's strongest advocate for excellence in the practice of environmental health, as it delivers on its mission to build, sustain, and empower an effective environmental health workforce. The mission is fulfilled in the products and services offered by NEHA to advance the environmental health professional through credentialing, training, education, networking, professional development, and policy involvement opportunities. You can learn more about NEHA on our website at www.neha.org. Thank you again for joining us today. For those of you who are tuning in live, please ask your questions in the comments section of the platform you're using to view this discussion. We'll do our best to address as many questions as we can. Now let's get started. First, we'll hear from our keynote speaker. Dr. Govindaraj Devkumar is an assistant professor at the University of Georgia's Center for Food Safety. His research interests include studying bacterial persistence due to the phenotypic diversity, antimicrobial resistance, and the development of sustainable interventions to control the spread of foodborne bacterial pathogens. Prior to his appointment at the University of Georgia, he completed postdoctoral research at the University of Arizona and the University of Maryland. Dr. Devkumar developed an interest in food safety after working as a microbiologist in an airline kitchen. These stints have given him the opportunity to work with both foods and people across the globe. He also serves as the president of the Indian affiliate of the International Association of Food Protection, and has worked towards introducing the field of food safety to university students across India. At this time, we'll hear a little presentation from Dr. Govind Devkumar, and please stand by as we queue up that recording for you all.
Hi, happy World Food Safety Day. I would like to thank the National Environmental Health Association for giving me this opportunity to provide you with my take on how food safety favors the connected mind. My name is Govindaraj Devkumar, and I am an assistant professor at the University of Georgia's Center for Food Safety. I'd like to start this presentation by giving you a little bit of my background and describe how I got interested in food safety research. I'll describe how our lab uses bioluminescent foodborne pathogens to study cross-transfer and cross-contamination. We'll look at how my research using these bioluminescent organisms has helped me improve as a food safety educator and a communicator, because a picture can truly speak 1,000 words. And finally, I will give you a personal anecdote to describe how food safety knowledge is a two-way street. So I am from the city of Chennai, which is in southern India. Chennai is one of India's 4 major metropolitan cities. Growing up in Chennai, our main concern was waterborne diseases. So we boiled our water, we filtered it, we would add chlorine to our water. Produce safety was not something that crossed my mind. In fact, this is a typical market. Actually, this one is right next to my residence back in Chennai. And as you can see, the produce was sold by local vendors. They were usually not refrigerated, and sometimes they were kept close to the ground. In fact, my first foray into food microbiology was after reading this book called Toxin. In this book, this book was about a spurious O157Het7 outbreak associated with beef, and that got me fascinated, and I wanted to become a microbiologist. So I pursued my bachelor's and master's in applied microbiology. After completing my degree, I was lucky enough to get my first job as a microbiologist in an international airline kitchen. So we would receive foods that were prepared in different countries. So these were different types of foods that were prepared under different regulations. And as you can imagine, the microbiological testing of these foods would always yield fascinating results. So working in this stint may help me understand that food safety was a global issue. I got so interested in food microbiology that I wanted to learn further. And I moved to the United States to pursue a PhD in food science and technology at Virginia Tech. While at Virginia Tech, I looked at how tomatoes could get contaminated by dust. Following my PhD, I did my first postdoc in the University of Arizona. And at the University of Arizona, I was looking at how leafy greens such as lettuce could get contaminated by foodborne pathogens. A lot of my work was performed in the desert of Arizona, called in a region called the Yuma region, which is highly productive for agriculture. I did another stint as a postdoc at the University of Maryland, and I went back to tomatoes. But this time I was studying how salmonella survives on the surface of tomatoes and actually interacts with the tomato metabolome. Finally, I am at the University of Georgia as an assistant professor, and I work on various commodities, agricultural commodities that are produced in the state. Georgia is known as the peach state, so I am working on peaches and peach safety. But there are many types of produce such as tomatoes, cucumbers, bell peppers that are also produced in Georgia. And apart from these, I work with other types of foods such as meats and specialty foods from all across the world. So it is a continuous learning endeavor and it's very exciting. One of my lab's main area of focus is to visualize cross transfer. Now, cross transfer is can be broadly defined as a transfer of bacteria from environmental surfaces onto food surfaces, at least in a food safety context. So in our lab, we study cross transfer based on irrigation water misuse uh, through like overhead sprinklers or splashing. We mainly focus on dust and bioaerosols as vehicles for bacterial cross transfer. Dust is particularly interesting because it's not commonly thought of as a vehicle for bacterial transfer, and dust can actually travel across vast areas, even over continents. We have also started looking at animal intrusion and started some work looking using artificial intelligence to predict when animals intrude farms. A novel way to track the transfer and travel of foodborne pathogens from one surface to the other is through the use of bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is a spectacularly beautiful phenomenon. In fact, if you see the picture to the left, you can see bioluminescence on one of the coastlines of Australia. Bioluminescence has been observed in waters across many regions of the world, and it is a byproduct of a process called quorum sensing, where bacteria communicate with each other. So in our research, we have used some of these genes for bioluminescence production and transferred them to Salmonella. To the right, you can see Salmonella montevideo expressing luminescence. Like I said, bioluminescence is a remarkable tool to study bacterial cross transfer. The picture that you're seeing is actually of tomato blossoms that have come in contact with dust that was carrying salmonella. You can see using this imaging technology, we can look at the distribution of bacteria on the surface of the blossom. We can look at the hot spots that tend to absorb more of the bacteria. In the case of blossoms, these were tissues that contain trichomes like fine hair. Um, we also did other food safety experiments where we studied cross transfer from different scenarios. So we would use a knife that was used to cut meat and not washed properly, and then used to cut melons. In this picture, we had seeded the meat with bioluminescent salmonella, and you can see how the bacteria has cross transferred to the surface of the melon when the knife is not washed. We have done experiments also with not only with produce but also with meat, in such as poultry and beef. In fact, in the next slide, we'll show you some of the work that we have done where we demonstrate in real time the effectiveness of certain antimicrobials and antimicrobial-based sanitizers. Finally, this picture is of lettuce. So these are discs of lettuce that were cut, and contact was facilitated with soil containing salmonella. We can see how the salmonella was transferred to the surfaces of these discs. This is also an excellent tool to understand how surface roughness can affect bacterial transfer. As described previously, bioluminescence is a fantastic tool to demonstrate the antimicrobial efficacy of sanitizers. In fact, we can demonstrate the antimicrobial efficacy of sanitizers in real time. And so here's a picture of a chicken leg that was treated with a lemongrass oil-based sanitizer. And this was for a duration of 30 seconds, following which we could take the picture again and we can show the reduction in salmonella on the surface of the chicken. The reduction can be discerned by the change in color or the lack of bioluminescence on the chicken leg to the right. In fact, the only spots that seem to be holding any of the salmonella are the bone. So this not only helps scientists but also stakeholders to understand some of the safety risks associated with with the products that they're making, and it helps us look for novel sanitizers in real time. This is a picture of this picture to the left is of a leaf of lettuce that has been treated with a hibiscus-based extract, and you can see that you can compare the efficacy of some of these sanitizers to each other. Finally, we have also used bioluminescence as an excellent teaching tool. This was one of our papers that got published a few years ago. And in this paper, we wanted to see how the design of coring tools contributed to the cross transfer of bacteria to lettuce. So coring tool is used to remove the core from a head of lettuce. So what we did was we seeded the coring tool with bioluminescent E. coli, and then we continued to core heads of lettuce, and we could see if the tool retained the bacteria and how much of it was transferred to the surface of the lettuce. Bioluminescent images are effective in conveying our messages to a diverse audience. While this technology has applications in cell biology, veterinary, and food science, it is also an excellent teaching tool. Our images have been used by extension experts in conveying food safety concepts to growers, producers, and consumers. We regularly use our images to cross-pollinate food safety with other sciences. One of our goals is to introduce food safety research to students and professionals across the globe. Images of our research have captured the imagination of scientists of all ages. There is a universal curiosity about food safety that is irrespective of education, background, or nationality. My current stint as the president of the Indian Association of Food Protection in North America, IAFPNA, provided our team with the opportunity to connect with a diverse audience across India. Our members presented their research to university students pursuing degrees in molecular biology, microbiology, veterinary sciences, and food sciences through seminars, question and answer sessions, and workshops. Our global outreach initiative was met with universal enthusiasm. These seminars and talks got both students and researchers interested in finding homegrown solutions to tackle pressing issues in food safety. So, as previously described, our global outreach connected us with some really interesting global solutions. We came across fascinating research on a novel strategy to control the persistence of foodborne pathogens. One of the attendees of our talks, and now a collaborator, shared his team's research on novel antimicrobial compounds. The paper can be seen to the left. The compounds were isolated from bacteria Actinomyces present in fish guts. The team isolated over 40 actinobacterial strains from fish. Some of these compounds had antibacterial action and quorum sensing inhibitory action. So bacterial quorum sensing help bacteria to sense cell density. Quorum sensing is not only involved with bioluminescence, as previously described, but also in the formation of bacterial biofilms in a variety of bacteria. When these quorum sensing compounds are blocked by inhibitors or quenchers, then we are able to control bacterial behavior such as persistence and control the formation of biofilms. Hence, quorum sensing is a mechanism of bacterial communication and is important for pathogenesis and biofilm production. The team reported the efficacy of these compounds against several foodborne pathogens, and these compounds show promise as probiotics and antimicrobials. The team has conducted further research in assaying diverse fish across India for potential antibacterial metabolite producing marine actinomyces. And hence, this kind of research on quorum sensing blockers, quorum sensing quenchers, seems to have a lot of potential in reducing the persistence of foodborne pathogens. Explorative research across the globe is vital towards finding effective solutions to food safety challenges. The isolation of novel metabolites and antimicrobials can help us combat the persistence of antibiotic-resistant pathogens. Homegrown solutions towards keeping food safe and fresh can help reduce our usage of renewable energy. My favorite examples include the use of copper surfaces and use of clay containers to prevent spoilage during the long-term storage of fruit. Collaborative research could help us in better preparedness in handling emerging challenges. So now I will provide you with an example of how connecting and collaborating can help us find congruities between two seemingly non-related areas of research. So I study bacterial stress responses, and to the left is an example of filamentation, a remarkably interesting strategy used by Salmonella, E. coli, and several other foodborne pathogens. Salmonella, in this instance, can form long chains of divided but unseparated cells when faced with a stressor, such as an antimicrobial or sanitizer. These long chains begin to septate or disintegrate when the stressor abates. So when the concentration of the sanitizer reduces over time, the cells actually begin to septate. You can see the picture to the right where the cell division starts to become clear. The septa formation helps the Salmonella disintegrate and actually free itself from the filaments. So this is one of the several strategies Salmonella uses to dodge antimicrobial stress. So the picture to the right consists of filamentous cells and actually some regular sized cells that are caught up in between these large filamentous cells. So the filamentous cell formation here in Salmonella was induced using a fatty acid found on the surface of tomatoes. So these are fatty acids that are found in the cuticle of tomatoes, and some of these fatty acids can induce filament formation. So I presented this research to an audience in India, and after my presentation, I got an email from one of the attendees about some interesting research that he had come across. So the article is from a Indian newspaper, and in the article they describe that a research team from the Indian Institute of Science showed that Salmonella had a knack for finding its way through nooks and corners of third-order lateral roots. So in their study, what they did was they grew their tomato plants in environments of high salinity. They also used a chemical inducer to induce third-order lateral root formation. So the third-order lateral roots are much finer than regular root structures. And what they found was Salmonella was able to wedge its way right into the corner and get into those nooks and crannies and enter into the root system. So this was fascinating, but it was hard for me to picture how Salmonella was so directed in its approach of entry. Normally, when you observe bacterial cells under a microscope, they're tumbling around, and unless there's chemotaxis, their movement is not very directed. Well, one day when I was observing filamentous cells under the microscope, I came across this video that I'd like to share with you. So what we see is some regular bacterial cells that are wedged between really large filaments. And what we can observe is the bacteria are actually quite dedicated in trying to get out of the tight corner. They're trying to wedge themselves out of the tight corners, and their movement is very directed. So in fact, you can see they're almost trying to nudge their way out, and they're one guard away. So this video helped me understand how Salmonella might strategize and find their way through lateral root structures. So truly, just presenting my research to a diverse audience helped me find a new way through which Salmonella might find its way through tomatoes. So discovery does favor the connected mind. I would like to acknowledge the great work by our team at the Indian affiliate for the International Association for Food Protection. Also, I would like to acknowledge Ms. Jennifer Reynolds' help, who's our communication expert, in putting this together. And finally, this was put at the University of Georgia's Center for Food Safety. I'd like to thank the University of Georgia and the International Association of Food Protection for providing me with this platform to connect and communicate my research. I'd also like to thank Spectral Imaging for their imager to take these awesome bioluminescent images. Finally, I would like to thank the National Environmental Health Association and Environmental Health Australia for this opportunity to present some of my research and connect with you, the audience. I would like to thank you, the audience, for your time. I hope we get the opportunity to connect in the future. Finally, happy World Food Safety Day. Safer food, better health.
Thank you, Govind. That was fascinating to hear about your journey and about some of the projects you've worked on. And I'm going to make it a point to visit that beach in Australia in my lifetime, because the fact that they are communicating with each other and escaping out of corners is incredible. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, that makes two of us, and you're very welcome.
All right. Well, let's invite two additional panelists to our discussion. I'd like to introduce you all to Zainab Boualeg. She is a food safety consultant freelancer working for investors looking for new business in GCC markets and the compliance of their food products. She graduated from the Higher Institute of Technological Studies of Tunisia with a chemical engineering and technology degree. She has received training and obtained certifications in ISO 22000, HACCP, auditing, principles of risk analysis, types of toxins and pollutants and prevention methods, and the use of the hazard system in collection of samples. Since 2013, she has been working in Dubai Municipality and Food Safety Department as the Food Studies and Surveys Senior Officer working on regulations and compliance of food labels of imported products and packaged foods, according to the GSO UAE standards. She also serves as the Regulatory and Compliance Officer in Singera Enterprises in UAE and assists in conducting food safety training courses on imported and re-exported items, shelf life verifying, food permits, and layout approval processing. As a consultant, she loves to be able to help her clients achieve and exceed their set goals, ultimately building trust and relationships. Welcome, Zainab. And Zainab, it appears you're on mute, so go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Yes. Happy to say today, girls.
Thank you. Let's go to another panelist, Yashvir Suraj. Yashvir earned his Baccalaureus Technologia in Occupational Hygiene and Waste Management and National Diploma, which includes majors in food and meat hygiene, epidemiology, and air and water environmental pollution at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. Currently, Yashvir is employed as an environmental health practitioner at the City of Johannesburg Metropolitan Municipality. He develops, implements, and enforces health policies to meet the requirements of compliance in waste management, water quality monitoring, environmental pollution control, vector control, food safety, chemical safety, and communicable disease outbreak. His responsibilities include monitoring and evaluation of environmental health investigations and writing requisite reports. In his work, Yashvir utilizes his special technical skills and knowledge of the current promulgated legislation to ensure safe and healthy environment for both humans and the earth. So we have a wonderful panel today. Welcome all of you. It's such amazing backgrounds and experience. And we'd like to just dive into some questions. So the first one is just a general, tell me about yourself and why you chose food safety. So why don't we go ahead and start with Zainab and tell us about yourself, Zainab. Why food safety? Why is this the career for you?
First of all, just let me thank you to have this opportunity to connect.
Could you speak up just a little bit?
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Is it okay right now?
Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
First of all, let me thank you for giving me the opportunity to connect for this event, for this special day, International Day for Food Safety World. My name is Zainab. I'm food safety consultant freelancer, working for the trader, for the business investor. They are looking for new business in GCC world, GCC countries, and verifying if their products are complying with the GCC standard. I like food safety because I believe that being in a good health life, so need to eat healthy food. So that's why I choose to work for this domain.
Great, thank you. And that really ties into the theme, safer food, better health. So thank you. Yashvir, why don't we hear from you? Why did you choose this line of work? What excites you about this job?
Good morning to the floor at large. So also want to say thank you for this opportunity. And the reason why I chose this field is that an office job never suits me, or I never see myself stuck behind a desk like an accountant who just has different figures. It's the same monotonous thing day in and day out. But the joy of serving the citizens and ensuring that what food they receive is of such a nature that it ensures food safety, good health, good hygiene, and an improvement to their basic standard of living.
Fantastic, thank you. And Govind, we heard a little bit of your passion in your presentation. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, first, I'd like to thank the National Environmental Health Association for this wonderful forum. What keeps me interested in food safety is the new challenges it throws every day. No day is the same. There's always something to learn, and there's always an opportunity to interact with people, and that keeps me coming to the lab every day.
Fantastic. Great. Well, we have some of you have some regulatory experience. I'm looking at you, Yashvir, and I'd like to talk about, because a lot of our audience might be environmental health professionals that do inspections in the field around the globe. So I think we have a lot of members joining us today. I'd like to know, what does an average day look like for you conducting inspections? If you could tell us about what that's like in your country, I think we'd love to hear about that.
In South Africa, we have a very diverse population. So a usual day in my field, in my country, is that firstly we have two different sectors: the private sector and the public sector. The private sector is more formal, if I could put it that way. And I say more formal is when we approach these premises, we have to comply with their private policies and ensure that we undergo their necessary induction training before we can even conduct our daily duties. And then on the other hand, in the public setup, where we're dealing with your usual food premises and your vendors, now in South Africa, you must know we have 11 official languages. So the first and foremost challenge that you're going to encounter is the language barrier. So to assist you in being a health inspector in South Africa, you need to be fluent in at least more than one of our official languages. So that makes the first impression a good one. That's where you develop your relationship with your client that no, this person knows what they're doing. They have their feet on the ground and they know exactly what is required for South Africans.
Wow.
So
That
it starts from there. So stemming from there, that's when you can start your procedure in a systematic manager method, ensuring that you understand what the vendor is required or what you need to educate the vendor in health promotion or health education. And over and above that, in South Africa, we have a lot of different premises that we do inspect. So we're not solely designated to just your supermarkets or your restaurants. We also inspect schools, early childhood development centers, places of care like your old age homes, your blind societies, all of the premises where food is prepared. So your daily job doesn't just say you're going to go and inspect 5 supermarkets. It'll incorporate all of these. So it's a very wide field that you are walking into.
I see. And, I think that's really similar to a lot of the environmental health professionals here in the United States, too, is that we are kind of a jack of all trades. We do all kinds of inspections and no day is alike. So that's really great. What I heard you say, and it kind of reminded me of something that Zainab had said earlier, was that she's really interested in fostering that relationship, building the relationship with the operator, whether it's an operator at a grocery store or a public market or a daycare facility. So I'd like to hear maybe from Zainab about what has your experience been in building relationships. Do you have any advice for how how you connect and to tell people about food safety and why it's so important? Do you have any maybe advice for our viewers on how they can build those relationships?
Absolutely, yes, but from different views. I mean, if I'm consumer, I have advices. If I'm client, I have advices. If I'm trader, also another advices. So from each of you, there is a lot of advices as a responsibility toward the food safety. Each of us is responsible for maintaining the food safety from farm to fork. So for any level, we can talk about food safety.
I see. So let's talk about that a little bit more because food safety is so big, like you just said. I mean, farm to fork, food on the continuum is everywhere, right? So there's got to be a way that you coordinate with other agencies or organizations. So for any panelist member, I'd like to know, it's the world of food safety is so big. Do you have any coordinated efforts with trade organizations or with other agencies or industries that help you make sure the food is safe in your communities? Would anybody like to take that question?
Yeah, I get it. Actually, because of my experience in Dubai, working for regulation and standard, so that give me uh, experience to know if the food product is complying or not complying. And also, I'm collaborating with my colleague, with other training consultancy, food safety consultancy in Dubai. Also for the other authority of standardization to be updated with the standard. As you know, the standards are updating every day. So I need to collaborate with them to maintain and to be sure about my work.
Great, thank you. Anyone else on the panel like to talk about how they collaborate?
Yes, I would like to add on to that is that environmental health is incorporated with many different departments in South Africa. For example, the Department of Trade and Industry. They usually govern part of their governance is the importation and exportation of products. And one of the scopes of practice for environmental health is ensuring that whatever we are exporting or whatever we are bringing into the country is of a nature that is to the standard of South Africa. For example, if we have to export a product, we physically have to go out and ensure that whatever is listed that is being exported is exactly what it is in terms of batch numbers, expiry dates, and even the name of the product. So we work hand in hand with the Department of Trade and Industry because if we have to withdraw or condemn any consignment, it will be a shortfall for them because they are promoting importing or exporting of products. And we work hand in hand to ensure that whatever we are importing or exporting is safe for human consumption and also to enhance the economy of the country.
So for me, my research is based on a lot of input from federal agencies. A lot of our research is funded by federal agencies like the USDA, the FDA. But our research is also kind of geared to be to look into the future so that we can develop data that the federal agencies use for policy making. Right now, for example, we are looking at air from farms to see if they could be a source for bioaerosols. It's not a regulated source for contamination, but the results are really interesting. So we keep our finger on the pulse, and we are geared towards helping our federal agencies to come up with better to make food safer.
I see, thank you. And I understand, Zainab, in Tunisia there is a new law. Is that right?
Yes,
Can you tell
uh,
us a little bit about that?
yes. Since 2019, Tunisia adopted new food safety law, number 25, 2019, that allows the establishment of effective risk analysis structure. And the aim is to strengthen the administration structure for food safety and consumer protection in Tunisia. Also is to protect consumer and create better working conditions. So since the new law was passed, Tunisia has already set up a National Food Safety Authority, INSPA, yeah, and National Risk Assessment Agency, the ONSET. Both are under the responsibility of the Ministry of Health.
I see. So that's kind of a big change and some structural changes in how you regulate food safety there. So that's going to be very exciting.
Yes. Also, there is a new partner like Germany. Germany authorities are now working with the authority, the Ministry of Health, Tunisia, to help assist and to advise us for many things about the food safety program, and also working for the training program.
I see. Yes, I
And
bet training is has a big role in making sure that you conduct effective inspections and secure the
exactly,
food. Wow.
yeah, this,
You talk about other countries coming in to kind of help and advise, and I think that's really great. And Dr. Dev Kumar, we had talked about something similar where we're doing research in one country that can really impact the way another country is doing things. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So, in my personal experience, what I found out is, one person's weapon can be used to fight your own opponents, which in our case is a pathogen. So, when we were doing our seminars in India, these were interactive seminars. We were learning just as much as we were giving, and so what we came across was some really interesting research that one of our collaborators had done, where they were looking at quorum sensing or quorum inhibiting compounds that were present in the guts of fish that are found only across like India. And in particular, they were looking at a region called the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So this is a kind of a remote area. Some of the species of fish that they were looking at were unique, and they had a lot of promising results. In fact, I have another collaborator who actually was in South Africa during the Listeria monocytogenes outbreak, and they were looking at the strains, and now we will be starting some research to see particular facets of its behavior. So it is extremely connected, and again, having this kind of a forum also makes it better because we get our word across.
I see. Thank you. So you mentioned a listeria outbreak, and I'd like to kind of hear from you all. Um, what does foodborne illness outbreak response look like in your country? And why don't we go to Yashvir? Tell us about maybe a recent foodborne illness outbreak that you investigated, or just in general, the things that are challenging to you and maybe specific to your community.
Okay, let me start off with what is the procedure that we use. So we are now moving from the usual method of pen and paper. We're trying to make it an online method, but we're still utilizing the pen and paper method, whereby in South Africa we have provinces, which is like a state. So within each state we have local clinics where the citizens are able to use, and when they are sick they go to the clinic, and the sisters that are there will then notify one of the state doctors that, you know what, this person is showing symptoms of a communicable disease. We will then escalate that matter to the head of state, a head state facility rather, and that's where the doctor will do the diagnosis and will notify an outbreak team that we have a confirmed case of, for example, which is now something in South Africa is malaria. So once they notify the outbreak team, Thereafter, it comes to the EHP, who will then have to conduct an investigation. For example, in terms of malaria, we'll have to investigate where did the case develop, in which area of the state. Physical address, we go and visit the physical address and then we're going to analyze the environment. Is there any areas that will um, where mosquitoes can harbor themselves? Stagnant water, for example. Once we collect our information, we will then report back to the outbreak team and they will analyze the information from our investigation. But in line with the EHP, our job is to find out why did the communicable disease come about. For example, for the malaria, one of the major downfalls in South Africa is that with the large amounts of summer rain that we have received, the amount of stagnant water serves as breeding ground for mosquitoes on a wide basis, on a very, very wide basis. And that is where we lack in a sense, is that we have a lot of harboring areas for communicable disease. But if I go forward, now we are moving to the online method of reporting communicable diseases in the sense of an outbreak. This turns around time for us. So it's not a long procedure. Everything is online. We can access it via our cell phones for each area of jurisdiction, and then we can conduct the investigation.
I see. Thank you. So you mentioned kind of a challenge in South Africa with the mosquito, the breeding grounds, and I'd like to know what do you think your program in particularly does really well with food safety? Is there an area that you particularly exceed in that you'd like to kind of share?
In terms of food safety and communicable disease outbreaks,
Yeah, I think in terms of food safety, because part of this conversation is getting our attendees to know, that there are real people behind the scenes doing foodborne illness outbreak investigations. And a lot of times when we have an outbreak, it's kind of negative. And, there's this outbreak and what went wrong and who wasn't there and who should have been there. And so I always like to ask the question, what do you do really well? Because we do a lot of really great things in environmental health and food safety. So I'd like to know from your perspective, what is it that you think that South Africa does particularly well? Like how, maybe an example or a story or anything that you think that just lends to the idea that we're doing a really great job, the best we can do.
no, definitely. I think the EHPs in South Africa are doing a stalwart performance in food safety. One of the slogans of the Department of Health of South Africa is prevention is better than no cure. So we do a lot of health promotion, health education, whereby I just did one last week, whereby we educated vendors, informal traders who don't have a premises which is made out of brick and it has a roof. They trade from maybe a trailer or they have a container whereby they are trading from. We educated them in terms of the use of PPE, how they need to store their food, how they need to prepare their food in a hygienic manner in order to ensure that food safety is enhanced. For example, we explain it's easy just to tell a person you need to do A, B, and C. But when you explain to a person why they need to do A, B, and C, that's when they start to understand and they start to improve in terms of food safety. For example, we always tell the people um, when you are a food handler, you shouldn't be wearing makeup or be wearing earrings or any jewelry. But then they always ask us why. Sometimes people are put on the spot and they can't answer it. But luckily, we're very well trained. So, in terms of makeup, when you're in a food preparation area, and if you are preparing food, you're going to start to sweat because of the heat. And makeup has all sorts of different products that is used to make it. If you start to sweat and you start to drip into the food, that's going to contaminate the food. So when you explain to the people, this is why you need to not wear makeup. You can't be wearing earrings and preparing food because if the earring falls into the food, that food is not safe for human consumption anymore. So like I said, here in South Africa, we dwell a lot on prevention is better than cure. We educate, we do health promotion on a regular basis. So we teach the public that food cannot be kept in the danger zone for more than 4 hours. And why is that so? Because of the pathogens that dwell in the food and that start to reproduce.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Any of the other panelists want to chime in here about what they might want to share about food safety and maybe some messaging that you share in your communities?
I can go with one. So, the federal agencies in the United States, they do a really good job of tracking how foodborne pathogens get into the food system. And also, it's a great learning experience for educators because when they do these traceback investigations, they are extremely forthcoming and they're very transparent about their findings. And this gives us, a really this gives us opportunities to learn where things might have been overlooked. So I think this kind of communication, where there's so much transparency between federal agencies, academia, and research institutions. It really helps in improving food safety on a large scale, on a global scale.
Thank you. Zainab, do you have anything to add?
Actually, the food law is still new. Still, they are working for the organization for handling mission. So still, we don't work for the investigation. But before that, the Ministry of Health just informed the public if there is any outbreak in any area, and still do the awareness and advices to eat food with hygienic manner, to store food also with hygienic manner. So this is all about the prevention. And that's all. Withdrawing the non-conform food from the food establishment, maybe fines also, and
Okay.
that's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I recognize that we have three different panelists from three different countries here, and I would like to know. I think a lot of our audience might be interested to know what if you have any special food processes or food items that you see in your country that might be unique to another country, and how you handle those kinds of inspections if you do inspections or if you're consulting. Anything that stands out from your community that you think, wow, this is a really unique food product that might not be in the United States or might not be in Tunisia or South Africa? Anything you could think of?
Yes, most definitely. In South Africa, we have what is called a braai or a shisanyama. Now, let me break that down. In the United States, that's what you typically call a barbecue. So the local term for it in one of South Africa's official languages in Zulu is a shisanyama, is to have a barbecue. Now, this is a very difficult situation for an EHP. Namely, because it happens outdoors, there's no formal structure that one can certify. And mainly who participates in this is the lower socioeconomic segment of the economy. Because it's such a traditional or part of the culture of South Africa, everyone participates in it. We don't see it as just being for the lower class, the middle class, or the upper class. So everyone participates, but in terms of certifying it or ensuring that food safety is impeccable is a very difficult situation for the local EHP. So in terms of our regulations, we use what's called the best available method to ensure compliance. For example, your meat, if it's happening outside in the park, there is no electricity whereby you can have a refrigerator or a freezer to ensure that the meat is at a suitable temperature. So the next best available method that we teach the people is to have a cooler box with ice to ensure that the meat is at a suitable temperature. Now, if this is happening on a daily basis, we need to think that if the lower class is performing this, they need to ensure that they buy ice every day. So another suitable best method over and above that, you can get a plastic water bottle fill that with water and freeze it at your house. And that serves as an ice pack to ensure that the meat stays at a suitable temperature. So in terms of the AHP, we have to think very broadly on how we can assist the public. We can't just be that policeman who wants to prosecute, shall I say. We are there to teach, we are there to educate, and more so, we are there to ensure that food is being prepared safely. So the Shisanyama in South Africa is a difficult situation, but we are finding ways and means around it. And what I would say, in my opinion, would be a great solution is if we can designate certain areas whereby electricity is found for the lower class to practice this. At the end of the day, this is their bread and butter. And we rather have them trying to earn it in an honest manner than to resort to crime. So I think we must look at ways and means that we can assist the public, because assistance will work better than working against the public to ensure compliance. If someone is willing to work with you, compliance is a given. Whereby if you're working against someone, compliance will be a very difficult task. And that's speaking from experience.
Oh, wow, great. That's great information. And that reminds me, here in America, we have large events, temporary events, we call them, where, food operators go in and they set up in the grass in the middle of a park, or, a mobile food vending will come. And this is taking our inspectors out of the normal brick and mortar establishment where you have your 3 compartment sink and you have your prep area and you have your refrigerators, and you're taking them into a completely different environment. And that can be very challenging to regulate. And I think, in my experience as a former regulator, a lot of it was education, just like you said, and telling people why this is so important. And I think you made a really great point about the alternate measures of control. Our regulations in the States, as I'm sure elsewhere around the world, are founded in science and what we've researched and what we've discovered and how to make food safe. And there's more than one way to get from point A to point B. So I just wanted to point that out, that this is something that, across the board, we look at, okay, if we can't meet this very high standard, what can we do to still support it, to still make the food safe, make some alternate measures? That's great. Anyone else on the panel like to comment on anything unique about their communities or food or anything that we've been talking about?
Well, for me, I've been lucky to be a part of two, do research in the United States and also do research in India. And what is always interesting to me is the paradigm shift that you'll find when you travel from one country to the other. Like in India, water, the quality of the safety of water is always a big concern, whereas with produce, it's cooked. So produce safety was not a huge issue. But all my research in the United States was on produce safety. But water is like one of the safest, like tap water is safe to drink in the United States, which for at least my first 3 years in the United States completely shocked me when people drank water off their taps. So there's that paradigm shift that's always interesting. And another thing that I would when I was doing food safety in India, I would work with organ meats and or basically offal and organs and the food safety of that. And that was a challenging food source to work with, like if you're working with organs. But and now in the United States, there's this new trend where people spray dry organ meats and use them in protein shakes. So so that's again like my old nemesis revisits me in a new form. So different avatars always.
Oh, wow. That's not what I expected you to say, but how interesting. I mean, I guess they have a different nutritional content, so you might want to add it to your protein shake. Oh, wow. What about you, Zainab? Anything interesting that you've come across in your career that you think the audience would be interesting to know? Any maybe emerging trends that are going on in your country?
Actually, the Ministry of Health are working for this measures regarding any fact. So I think still we need to work for the digitalization because that help to inform the public in quick and efficient manner. And even the outbreak or any kind of food safety program uh, that maybe there is no result without communication. We need to communicate with public to make them part to any event for food safety, and that help a lot to enhance and maintain the efficiency of the food safety program. And Tunisia needs a lot of work for this point. But the technology, I mean, la numérisation, digitalization. So that helped a lot in our country. Regarding the food, Tunisia is well known by the olive oil, also dates, I mean almonds, a lot of fruit. They are so tasty for the blueberries, the strawberries, but we need also to look for a new technology for condition storage.
Thank you. And we're moving into this really data heavy, technology driven world. And I wonder if you all have any experience in your countries with that. How is it changing for you, the way that you might do your inspections or the way that you might receive information or give information? Would anybody like to talk about how that might be impacting what you do and how effective you might be?
I won't say it would be impacting, but we do get a lot of information via messaging, via email, rather than physically. But in sense of performance and effectiveness, we still carry out our duties as per normal to a high standard. But in terms of technology, yes, it's making reporting a bit easier. We don't have to hand deliver reports. We can now just email, which does make it a bit easier in sense of traveling to the premises just to deliver a report.
So we have a unique take on digitalization of data because as researchers we work with a lot of sequence genomes and all of that, and FDA does a great job of making that available to researchers. But having this global access to sequence genomes is really a dream come true. The other ways we are actually digitalizing training methods is using virtual reality to train people in how to do a food safety assessment. So one of my collaborators, Dr. Kevin Masolval, is actually using virtual reality to like map a particular facility and then help train them to see where food safety hazards might happen. So this is yeah, we are in a nexus where even training could be in a very realistic situation but still be virtual.
Okay, I've also utilized it in that sense for virtual reality because sometimes when you're doing health education, it's very difficult to explain to someone, for example, how to properly wash their hands or what a good preparation area looks like. So in terms of using maybe a PowerPoint presentation on a slide, pictures, videos, we do utilize that. That also makes it much easier to get the message across.
I think when the COVID-19 virus came through the United States, we were um, shifting how we did inspections, how we did education and training. I know that NIHA, our organization, offers a lot of training through grant-funded opportunities, and we had to go from in person to completely virtual. And how do you make a virtual course as engaging as a in-person course? And I think these are the challenges. But what I saw is that people really enjoyed the virtual because they could get that education, they could get their continuing education points. Excuse me. So I think that people really enjoyed that part of it going virtual, and we were able to reach a wide audience very quickly, actually.
Yeah, with the COVID-19 outbreak, it's food safety has definitely taken a pivot towards using digital tools. But again, the basics is communication and effective communication. Like many of our panelists have said, sometimes a picture can speak 1,000 words, and whatever, if it's a cost-effective method, which is to get the message across, it works just as effectively as a video or maybe a presentation. So that's very interesting to learn.
Mhm. Well, I'd like to switch gears for a minute and go into a little bit of story time, because I know that you all have chosen this profession, environmental health at large or food safety specifically, or researching in the food safety arena. And I'd like you, if you would like to share maybe a defining moment in your career where you felt this is it, this is the job for me, or even just a very interesting experience that you had that lends to the importance of food safety. And I know we haven't discussed that question before. This is an on the spot, but I'd really like to know kind of what inspired you, and maybe tell us a story about something that was really important that happened to you in your career that made you really want to do this job.
Well, I can tell you a story about how ramen noodles helped me solve a problem with salmonella. So the pictures that you saw in my presentation, the bioluminescent salmonella. So these are all wild type. So they're basically isolated from the environment. So when you put in a foreign gene into salmonella, they have this defense mechanism. They're called restriction enzymes. So salmonella produces restriction enzymes against foreign genes and cuts it up. So when you put this bioluminescent plasmid into salmonella, initially when we were trying it, we were not getting any luminescence because the salmonella would consider it foreign and use its immune system, which was those restriction enzymes, to chop it up. And I did this for like 3 to 4 months, and again, none of my strains were becoming bioluminescent. And then so one day I was like cooking ramen, and I was like, why do I even need to cook this? I should just eat it like raw and go back to the lab. And I was like, oh well, the heat inactivates enzymes. And then it struck me that restriction enzymes might also be inactivated at higher temperatures. So we ran back to the lab, incubated our bacteria after transformation at a higher temperature, and 2 days later we saw a bioluminescent, one colony that was bioluminescent, and it was mind blowing, like how everything is connected. Like, one act, basically, like some activity leads to some kind of innovation. So that was my aha moment that kind of got me really invested in food safety.
The case of the ramen noodles. I like that. Thanks for sharing. Yashvir or Zainab, anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, I will. When I was studying at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, I did my national diploma in environmental health, and with each year that you completed, you need to serve your time with the municipality, which was called work integrated learning. And I think it was from there onwards where I fell in love with environmental health or food safety, you may say. It's when you do your work to your best of your ability and you see that the people that you touch, where they are so appreciative of your work, when they learn new things and why things are done in a certain way. It's that joy to me that makes me want to go back to work every day and work even harder.
Thank you. That's pretty inspiring. Zainab?
Actually, for me, I was fascinated with the food safety program in Dubai Municipality Food Safety Department. So It was a big joy to work on different programs. I was enjoyed to learn and to practice and to work, to collaborate, interfere, inspect, doing meetings. It's a big, big, big work, big activities. Also doing events in the park, talking with publics, doing, I mean, like gift prize. We send prize for grow your food program. Grow your food in your home. Within 1 year, we encourage families in their home to grow their food, their salad, vegetable. So it was so amazing. There is a big impact, and that may change the culture of consumer of people. So when I saw the big impact within a short time during our food safety program, I believe in food safety. And when we talk about Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, after investigation, that may cause to death. So it's very important thing, very important field. So that's why I love this job. And I really want to do experience in my country, in Tunisia. Hope one day we reach good results in food safety.
That's fantastic. And I love what you just said. I believe in food safety. And that's a really wonderful statement. So we're going to start wrapping it up. And before I thank you for your time, I want to give the floor to you to offer any other closing thoughts or anything that you wanted to share with our audience today about anything that we've talked about. So anyone can go ahead and jump in, but let's hear a few closing remarks from you all and anything else that you'd like to share. Nothing. You've said it all.
Yeah, maybe one thing. If we can, if you can create a new division in Tunisia, Niha Tunisia.
Oh, Aniha, Tunisia. Well,
Yes,
you all certainly are advancing in your laws and regulations, and I'm eager to see how your training goes. We're always a resource, that's for sure. But yes, thank you for that.
actually, Tunisia encourage the creation of associations and yes, NGO organization. And right now, I'm studying the management of organizing non-profit uh, solidarity, solidaire, social. It's French actually, so that's why I need to translate.
Okay, well, that's exciting.
Yeah, social solidaire organization. I mean, social and solidarity organization management. And
Fantastic.
Tunisia right now encouraged by the creation of a new NGO association, international also organization. They are here in Tunisia working like FAO, and 1 minute it's the four organization working here in Tunisia uh, for food, for agriculture, for economic, water, security of water. They are all working to maintain the food safety in Tunisia. This is international activity, but local activity still we need to work in more and more.
Yeah, so I'm sure you'll be building your networks amongst each other in those organizations. That's really great to hear. Um,
Thank you so much.
Govind, Yashvir,
Yashvir, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you, sir. I think what I'd like to say, I can address this to our viewers or listeners, shall I call them, is that if we all pitch in and do our duty as the custodians for food safety, I think we will go a long way, because the work we do today is raising our leaders of tomorrow. So if we get stuck in and we do what we need to do, I'm sure we will reach our goals.
And I'd like to conclude by thanking Neha for this wonderful opportunity. I was looking through their website, and there are a lot of excellent programs that I want to also get trained in. So these are fantastic. And again, collaboration is very important. I've also seen that Neha supports research. So yes, food safety. I'm a big proponent of food safety research at the. And then that's what we do at the Center for Food Safety at the University of Georgia. So I look forward to more collaborations, and yeah, thank you again for this opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you all. I mean, I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to each of our panelists for sharing such valuable and important information with us. And thank you to Environmental Health Australia for partnering with NEHA as we highlight the important work that's being done around the world to protect our food supply. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank those behind the scenes that made the event today happen. Taryn Laird, Jordan Straley, Kate Beasley, and Chana Gustetis, who worked tirelessly to make this event happen. So thank you all for your time and your participation in our World Food Safety Day event. And we look forward to hearing all about the great work that you're doing in your communities on future events. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
Happy
you,
World
Laura.
Food Safety Day.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Thank you for NEHA organization. Thank you.